Last time we finished off the interior, so this time we needed to finish the rest of the components, starting it off with some various bits and bobs around the body, and also, of course, all the chassis components. Doing that, I needed to prime these first, then add some various different colors all over the place. While I set all those parts aside to dry off for a while, I moved on to doing the clear parts first and some various other pieces around the body which did not need those other parts yet, so I could just let those dry off and be sure I could just move on later on when this part was finished. With the window mask in place, I could start carefully with the first light coat and then move on to some other components around the body, like the window rubbers, the inside of the body on top, and in the back with the new addition of the roof piece that also needed to be painted black, and of course some pieces on the chassis. And then I could move on to a second coat on the window and be done with that for now. After those black details all got painted, I moved on to some silver details and then was pretty much done with the detailing and could start on some assembly. Now that the paint had dried on the window, I could move on to gluing that in, just using some Revell Contact Clear, a specific clear part glue, to hold this in place. And when it was in place, I added some more of this glue to reinforce it a bit and make sure that it didn't drop out when I did some final assembly. While I was gluing in clear parts anyway, I also figured to do the taillights, headlights, and some other components of these clear parts, like the indicators on the side and some of the mesh pieces, which I ended up painting black as I didn't really like the way it looked or had to come out with the kit. You needed to put some decals on it, and in my opinion it looked kind of weird, so just blacking them out was the way I decided to go. With that grille in place, that is pretty much the final piece I needed to add to the body right now, and I could move back to the chassis and doing some assembly on that. All the gluing I'm going to do on this chassis and pretty much the rest of the build, aside from all the clear parts obviously, is done with some Zap CA glue. This is the medium thickness in the green bottle. Now this is a CA, or otherwise known as super glue. It does not react with the paint and it sticks perfectly well. I'm not going to be using some Tamiya cement or any other type of cement or plastic cement for that, as it will act with the glue or will act with the paint and ruin the paint and take a long time to dry. So my preferred method is just to use some CA glue. It works really quick. You need to be careful, but I have assembled about 50 to 60 models with super glue only for all these painted parts, and they've worked out fine by now, and I kind of know what I'm doing. So just take your time, be careful, and keep your mind with it and not dwell off to other things. With all of those chassis pieces assembled, I moved on to dirtying this up a bit with some Tamiya Panelline accent color. Before I could put the exhaust on, I needed to weather that a small amount with my Tamiya weathering set, and then I could move on to putting the wheels in place and then just marrying the chassis and body together. So the wheels I'm using are not the stock kit wheels, but they are the Plamos 17-inch wheels. They are the same as the kit, but then 2 inches bigger and looking a lot better. They just snap in place just like the original, no modifications needed whatsoever. As you might have seen at the beginning of this video series, I modified the rear diffuser and exhaust to give it 4 exhaust tips instead of the standard 2, so I needed to add the exhaust tips to that as well, just using some Scale Production exhaust pipes. 2 final pieces were added to the front bumper, the rear view mirrors were added, and this build is considered done.